Well, independent journalist Taylor Lorenz is catching heat for what she said about Luigi Mangione, the alleged murderer of the United Healthcare CEO, back in December.
Lorenz joined CNN's Donny O'Sullivan for an interview about extremism in America. Here she is.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, and we give them Netflix shows.
Lorenz mentioned that there was a disconnect between the way Americans feel and how the mainstream media depicts the Mangione case.
She also said she experienced significant audience growth during her coverage of the case.
Here's Lorenz on the fanfare surrounding Mangione.
So you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find.
Reactions to Taylor's comments on CNN abounded on X. Writer at Outkick and author Ian Miller wrote, CNN is happy to call any opinions they don't like harmful and dangerous, and now they're doing an interview with Taylor Lorenz, who openly fawns over Luigi Mangione and calls him moral. Amazing what protection having the right political ideology buys.
Lorenz responded to the situation on Blue Sky, writing, "Me, the women who show up outside Luigi's jail believe him to be this moral hero, and they may be in for a rude awakening when he actually starts speaking. We don't actually know his belief system or morals at all. The entire media, Taylor Lorenz says Luigi is morally good." Well, we've quite a lot to discuss here, Robby. I think we should perhaps, well, I should certainly declare an interest of a kind in that I know Taylor Lorenz personally, although I haven't spoken with her for some years. She used to work here at The Hill, which is how I know her. She was always perfectly pleasant to me, and so that's something to be stated. I also know very slightly Donny O'Sullivan, because Irish journalists tend to know each other. I think I've met him once or twice. He has also been perfectly pleasant. She is now in the middle of a media storm for obvious reasons.
And not for the first time. I similarly know her socially. We have been friendly in the past, though I completely disagree with virtually everything she has to say on almost every subject these days. Although she did kind of say something here, she was verging on a point that's true. I think she feels captured by her audience, that she experienced massive growth. And it's true that there is a strand out there, even if some people who watch the show, of a sympathy of a kind, or maybe not a sympathy, but just a really an understandable hatred of what the healthcare system has done to people in this country, and maybe even a lust for vengeance against it that I don't think is a good tendency, is a tendency one should, does not nurture the soul, that she tapped into by going all in on this in a just utterly bonkers way. But the hypocrisy that is just so clear that some people have seized on is she has previously suggested or taken the position that criticism, heated criticism, sometimes directed at her, is like this really beyond the pale sort of crime or thing that needs to be pursued and countered and fought. She's actually got, whenever she was interviewed, I can't remember on what network, I think it might have been MSNBC, but I don't remember which one, it was a mainstream network, where she talked about the harassment she's faced, and she teared up about it, and then she got made fun of in the response to that interview, and she attacked the people who interviewed her for allowing her to be portrayed that. Well, what else they were supposed to do? They're interviewing you and you're caught on camera. So she's treated all of that like an attack on her personally. But then a literal instance of actual cold-blooded murder gets like, oh, well, he's tapping into something. I think that is what some people, a lot of people, myself frankly included, find it so appalling about that juxtaposition. That like heated criticism is some kind of crime, but an actual crime is, well, he's mad.
Yeah, I mean...
You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. I mean, I think that Taylor has, over the years, inserted herself into numerous online controversies, and then often complains that the criticism of her, as you say, is unfair or abusive, having at the very least stoked that controversy. She plainly doesn't see it that way. I mean, I I prefer her live and in person to her online persona, which I find more sort of fractious and whatever, just controversy seeking, but you know.
The thing she did that first really enraged the tech world, a lot of libertarian right people. Well, remember Clubhouse was a thing during the pandemic. There's a conversation featuring Mark Andreessen and some other people. Mark Andreessen is a big, tech investor person, actually now a big backer of Donald Trump, although he had come to that, more, I don't know how recently, but had not always been a Trump person. And she accused him of saying the R word, the R slur. It was actually not even him who said it, so she got that incorrect.
Okay.
But also she came out with a big thing about how like this was some horrible. I mean, you can certainly take the position that people shouldn't use that word. It's kind of coming back into our lingo as just a way to refer to some people as.
I think it's an unpleasant word.
I don't think it's a federal hate crime to do it, and to treat that way. And again, he didn't even say it, to be clear. It was somebody else. And then, to be like, but accused murderer. I also wanted to, I'm not sure we played this exact quote, or maybe we did. She described Luigi Mangione, and also, by the way, I find the worship of him no different from the worship of Charles Manson or what. It has always been the case.
Not convicted yet,
that
Robby.
women
Entitled to the presumption of innocence.
Sure, alleged killer, whatever, that's fine. It has always been the case that some psychotic women out there fall in love with these kinds of people, and I don't get it, but there's nothing new about that. It's the same kind of thing Charles Manson had going on. She said, here's this man who's a revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems like a morally good man, which is hard to find. I don't know if this was an intentional reference. I suspect it wasn't. But this was not pointed out to me. It was pointed out by colleagues of mine at Reason. There is and it's one of my favorite short stories. It's a short story called A Good Man is Hard to Find.
Okay.
It's by Flannery O'Connor. He's a brilliant writer about Southern Gothic, the kind of immediately after World War II period in the South. This story is about an escaped criminal who off-screen murders this family who turns down a wrong driveway. And actually, in Flannery O'Connor's later telling, she's Catholic. And this was all about Catholic versus Protestant in a way that if you were just reading the story, you could never get. Even I, as someone who was raised Catholic and went to Catholic school, I do not see what she sees in her own story about how it's Catholic versus Protestant. What it seems like is about this just really bad dude and how these oblivious people all get killed by him for almost like the grandmother character presumes there's some goodness to him, and then he shoots her dead and says, in the end, he says his famous line, she would have been a good woman if there'd been someone to shoot her in the face every day of her life. So I don't know if this was an intentional reference to this, but it was certainly not missed by colleagues of mine who are also a fan of Flannery O'Connor's work.
Well, I appreciate that guide to Flannery O'Connor, Robby, which I'm sure will be well received by our audience. But look, the thing that I find about Taylor is sometimes she goes overboard in what would otherwise be a very interesting discussion. So in relation to Luigi Mangione, you did have in some polls, there was an Emerson College poll, 41% of voters under 30 found the killing of Thompson acceptable. There were other polls that showed similar levels of sympathy. I think there is a valid discussion to be had about why people are so enraged about the health insurance industry, the degree to which the avarice of that industry plays into it, the degree to which, United Healthcare made $14 billion profit last year. So those things are genuine issues to be discussed. That is not to justify the killing of Mr. Thompson. And then, now, in a limited defense of Taylor, well, the clip that we played, and I can't remember where we started it off, but at the start, she's clearly saying some women see him this way. And then at the end, where she goes into the question about him being a moral person, it's much less clear whether that is her personal opinion or whether she's still saying some women see him that way. In any event, it reminded me of the debate she had with Piers Morgan on this same subject, where she said she felt joy about his killing, and she quite rightly and appropriately got a lot of pushback from that, and she stepped back slightly and said, well, maybe not joy, but not empathy.
Step back very slightly, yeah.
Very slightly,
right?
yeah.
She has had plenty of opportunities to emphasize that she's commenting on or observing a phenomenon that is real, not saying that she's a participant in this phenomenon. She's had plenty of opportunities to clarify that, and has not, I don't think, really done it to my satisfaction or anyone's satisfaction.
I think that's a fair point. I mean, I'm hindered by having a degree of personal interaction with her years ago, and I quite liked her. So I'm reluctant to put the boot in, but I also find some of the stuff difficult to defend.
Well, she's welcome to come on Rising and discuss for herself, and we can all hang out after, because we're friendly otherwise. But I think our viewers know that the social dynamic and the friendship is not impacted by having completely discordant political or philosophical views. You tell us what you think. And let me know if you're also a fan of Flannery O'Connor in the comments, please.
Absolutely.
Great author. Next up on Rising, why Stephen A. Smith says he may have no choice but to run for president. Stay with us.